St. Lucia, this is Open Mic, and we are back again with you. And my guest today is Mr. Denny Springer, who needs no introduction whatsoever. So we're going to get straight to the point because the time seems to go by so quickly. The first area we're going to be focusing on is the government's low-key appreciation for the level of contribution made by Taiwan, China, vis-a-vis government's overwhelming praises for Alba and Venezuela, which by comparison is significantly less. So we're going to touch on that. Dennis, I've listened to you for quite some time, airing your views, because you're very closely associated with Taiwan. There's no question, both you and I have been to Taiwan, and we understand the thrust that Taiwan can create for us here, not only in terms of funding, but by, education. And you know, it is always felt that you teach somebody how to fish, you don't give them fish. And I could not agree with you more. We want to highlight a little bit on that?
Yes, indeed. You mentioned you've been to Taiwan. I have on 4 occasions. I did a diploma in Taiwan on Asia-Pacific Studies, and I also did a research fellowship at the Institute of International Studies, and that was at National Chenchi University. I was there for nearly 10 months. To an extent, as far as I'm concerned, you know, a lot of people think because they see the Taiwanese here, for example, that they think they understand them, but they don't realize that those who come here are very diplomatic in the way they do things. I think the idea is to learn about a country, learn about its people. I think that is most important, and what is significant for them in the sense of the way they behave, what they expect. Say, for example, when we're talking about timing and things of that sort. I think the economic section the department had an exchange of views with businessmen, and they were leaving on the Wednesday, from what I've gathered, because I went to the opening ceremony, and that they had spoken to the business people here.
How recently was that?
That was about 4 weeks ago,
oh,
3 to 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And, you know, they were leaving on the Wednesday afternoon, but they had made plans to meet those people who were interested in doing business with them. And to be honest with you, when they arrived there for 5 to 9, there was only one person there.
Well, to be honest with you, I was not even aware of it.
There you are.
I was not even aware of it.
That was Baron's food.
Okay.
And consequently, they were so impressed with him that he now is going to have more or less the Asian market, you know, in spices
available to him.
But
you know, it's funny you should say that, because about 5 months ago, 6 months ago, I went to the embassy of Taiwan, because I had with me the chairman of the Republic Bank of Trinidad here, who indicated to me that the former chairman of Nian Massey had started a learning institutes in Trinidad, and there were almost 1,000 students, and he was opening another one in Guyana. And I'm saying we are right next door. So I've always felt, you know, although I appreciate the fact that we have a couple of universities here, including Spartan, but more than that, the economic activity associated with universities is tremendous. I mean, we just have to, I keep harping on it, look at what's happening in Grenada. And I'm saying you have Taiwan right here, and we can get professors from Taiwan. I think if the right concessions were given and holding our hands, we could start a university right now within 6 months. That would probably accommodate at least 1,500 people. Little Dominica has 1,800, Antigua has, St. Kitts has. We've had Spartan, I think, with 250 now. Spartan has been here for 35 years. Though they have done a good job, why haven't they grown more? And look at St. Helens University has just been closed because I talked to the people there, and what they are telling me, that the concessions which were promised were never really given to them. And you know, this going backward and forward all the time, when you make a promise to somebody, it has to be done. And really and truly, I mean, I know that you're pretty close to the Taiwan people. It is something maybe I would have to take up with you at some stage to see how we can push this thing, because time is passing us by. Other islands are moving ahead. So,
but you know, you're talking about education. I must tell you that even with the last government, that the second in command, which was Charles at the time, for diplomatic relations to have been renewed, it was agreed that the Taiwanese would set up an agricultural university in St. Lucia.
Okay, I was
and
not
that
aware
was
of that.
down in the valley. It is there as documented. And Charles asked me to go and speak to the minister at the time. The minister says, okay, all right. Are they serious? I said, they have the blueprint. So I went to the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister said to me, you know, he will speak to the minister. To be honest with you, up to now, you know,
this is
and
madness.
I even mentioned this to one or two people in this government. But you know, you think
It
they'll
has
still
fallen on
have
deaf ears.
fall on deaf
But
ears,
why is
you know?
that, you think? There
I-
must be some reason why. It can't be that they don't care.
Well, sometimes I often think that action speaks louder than words.
Right.
In the sense that, yes, we want to educate our people to a level that everybody is then becomes literate. But the problem is we don't want them too literate.
Yeah, but
Because
you know,
we need
and-
to manipulate.
Yeah, but because what I don't understand, sometimes we say, well, is it deliberate? Whereas, I mean, I do appreciate all the help Venezuela has given us. Don't get me wrong.
No,
Don't get me wrong.
no.
I mean, they have given us the bridges. They just gave us the laptops. That's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I think we owe it to people when they give us something. But by the same token, when you look at the millions that Taiwan is giving, you know, it's only a question of time before the Taiwan government and the people, you know, wake up and say, well, you know, are we really being appreciated for all what we're doing here?
Well, I don't know if the government or people interested in the Far East, you know, Asia Pacific studies, but what they would have realized is that the present government, the KMT, the Kuomintang, had at the last election they had, took a serious beating. Now, if the DPP comes in, which is the Democratic Progressive Party, which I believe they have every chance now of winning the next election, will they be as generous as the present government?
When the elections?
The election is 2016.
Yeah,
You
wow.
know, when the new, that's next year, when the new president will be elected.
Okay.
So you now have to think, will they be so generous?
Yeah.
Because we know that Chen Shui-bian, who was the last president before President Ma, during that period you had what we call checkbook diplomacy, and he was prepared to squander money to get diplomatic friends.
Right.
But Ma came in and had closer ties with the mainland of China, consequently knocking that on the head, so that they both said, the amount of diplomatic friends you have, you keep. What we have, we'll keep. This is why St. Lucia could not go
With China.
with
Yeah,
China.
I heard that.
Despite all what the fanfare was about, we have an inquiry, we're looking into it. They know they couldn't. I was sitting in Taiwan at the time thinking, who
are they fooling?
Who are they fooling? You know what I mean? Because it was agreed by the
Both nations, yeah.
the both countries
as the way forward.
That's the way forward.
Yeah,
you know what I
yeah.
mean? Because the sort of antagonism that went on couldn't go on. Even skirmishes in the air, you know, with the different air forces. They wanted to stop that, where people can have peace and tranquility in that area.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I sincerely trust that the government of St. Lucia is taking note of what we're saying today, because all these unfortunate incidents can backfire on St. Lucia. And I ask myself the question all over and over. Were it not for Taiwan and what they've been doing, where would we be today? I mean, this would be terrible.
But Charles, that's for the last government also, eh?
Yes.
Because they kept St. Lucia afloat, and you know they kept
Yeah,
them afloat
yeah.
because of Tom Chu,
Yes.
who loved this
I
country
know.
from top to bottom.
Yeah.
When I was in Taiwan meeting him, it was sad
Yeah.
because having lunch and dinner with him, and you could see his wife telling me that, you know, when she first came to St. Lucia House, she loved it, but the way, you know,
She was treated.
oh,
Yeah.
yes,
It was
she,
very
she
unfortunate.
was so happy
yeah.
to go back.
Right, yeah,
You
that's
know, now
terrible.
she's with her
People who
mother
have been
and
so
things.
kind to us, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Now, you know, Dennis, time moves very, very quickly.
Very.
Something which has come up this morning, which makes me quite perturbed, is the fact that last week the price of gasoline went up, I think, by 80 cents a gallon, and we're now 11 something. But talking to someone in Dominica this morning, they have reduced the price to 9 something a gallon. You know, but I also noticed that the leader of the opposition, Dr. Rigobert, wrote an article this morning on The Voice complaining or suggesting that that should be looked into. You have any reason why the price of petrol, gasoline, they dropped diesel a bit and raised gasoline, and then they put a tax on tires? Something is not quite right. What's going on?
I have a feeling that to the extent what the government wants to say to the people, to an extent,
Yeah.
is that if you had kept, say, for example,
The 3 months pass through,
pass through,
yeah, you'd
that
been better off.
you would have been
So
better
they
off.
do
you
these
know
things
what
at
I mean?
all costs, no matter what it is.
Exactly. So to an extent, you're thinking, well, why that is so? You know, I mean, that in essence is true, because we would have been still in the 3 month period.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But then, is it fair to the country?
Yeah.
Whichever way it is,
Yeah,
because
I
if
mean,
prices go up,
yeah.
you know what I mean, we are suffering.
Definitely.
And if they go down, we should then get the benefit, but we're not getting it because
And you know,
of the period.
an economist indicated that if the price of fuel had remained down, some $60 million annually would go into the system, and that in itself would help the country. I don't say get out of the rut, but it would certainly help us tremendously. So again, let us hope that the government is patiently listening to what we're saying today, and they will take the appropriate action.
But you know, Michael, let me point something out too, because sometimes because you've seen it with the article with Guy Ellis, the idea of yachting, tourism, and yachting is part of that. I remember maybe about 9 months ago when I don't know if you've seen the programs I've done on yachting and how St. Lucia can benefit from the yachting sector. Anchors Away.
And DD has been really pushing for that.
Yes, and you know what happened? When they wanted to push this along, they went to the Taiwanese embassy and they said, well, they don't know much about yachting in Taiwan. So they said to, and that's what I was told, they said, well, Dennis Springer went to Taiwan, he met the yachting sector, he did his documentary, blah, blah, blah. So why don't you all speak to him and ask him about, what I'm saying is, am I such the enemy of the country, the state, that someone or people couldn't come to me and ask me, instead of the Taiwanese now embassy coming to me to ask me about the yachting sector?
You know, when you say all these things, it tells me a story. They're not comfortable, and that's
well,
and we better be very, very careful, because I would hate to see St. Lucia lose Taiwan as a friend.
Well, I'm just interested in the development of this country, for the youngsters to come, because as you know, every June more and more youngsters go on the bread line, unemployment. Sure. So consequently, we have to now look at how we're going to give business people overseas incentives to come to St. Lucia, and not to so that we can develop it with real jobs and not just makeshift
we are
jobs.
just coming to the end of the first segment, but that's a very important issue you have raised concerning concession, because I have my concerns about that. And when we come back, we'll deal with that. This is Open Mic, and we'll be right back.